Coach, talk about now year 2 in the Sun Belt, which turned out to be one of the strongest conferences in the sport. When you look back at last year, what do you take away from that going into year 2 now here in the Sun Belt?
Yeah, I think I take a lot of lessons away from last year, specifically around the teams that we play in the Sun Belt. That conference is, I think it's in the top 2 to 3 conferences. I think the teams that we end up playing, the top teams, and I'd say, this year will be no different. I want to say there's five teams in the top 25. Last year, 3 of those teams were in the top 5 for quite a while. So the standard of the conference, the quality of the conference is very high. The level of players in the conference is very high, and I think the level of coaching in the conference is exceptional. So it's incredible challenges, difficult road trips as well. Those are not easy places to get to. The environments are great, and so we walk away from that. Now we have an understanding of how each team is gonna play. I think that's helpful. We know what to expect. So as we move forward into this year, probably a few less surprises in terms of what teams are gonna look to do against us and what we're gonna be up against.
What does it mean to you to have Luka and Anderson back for one more go round, especially in Anderson's case after being drafted?
Yeah, last dance. No, it's amazing what these guys have meant to the program. I can remember, it doesn't seem like it was all that long ago that we were trying to figure out how do we get these guys out of Brazil and into the U.S. because they were trapped in Brazil during COVID, and it was a real challenge. And they, with our help and their resourcefulness, we overcame that. We were able to get them here, and that was a Sweet 16 run, right, in their freshman year. So now here we are. Seems like 8 years later, but it's only really 4 years, guys, right? So they're incredible human beings. And I think over the years, UCF has meant more and more and more to them each year. They've invested so much. For these guys to come back when they have opportunities to move on and take another step, I think they want to give back to this program. We want to help elevate them as well. So I'm so excited to have those guys this season.
How have you reacted, and how have you seen your team leaders react to the way last season ended?
Yeah, I think we have to learn our lessons from last season, and we had reached an incredibly high level last season where, if you take a look, the national champion was Clemson, right? On day 1, we beat Clemson, and we deserve to beat Clemson. We were playing against Marshall and West Virginia. West Virginia ends up in the Final Four. So you sit there and say, okay, we reached this really high level. Now, how do we make sure that we're at this same high level at the end of the season, right? And I think there's lessons for players in that. And I think there's lessons for coaches in that. And so, we have to make sure that when we hit the real business end of the season, that we're at our best, right? We're playing our best football. We're healthy. We're not fatigued or not overly fatigued, and that we can still absolutely perform at our best. And we'll have lots of conversations throughout the season about how we're gonna achieve that.
Yeah. How much of that comes down to player leadership too?
Yeah, I think it's actually one of the strengths of this team, in my opinion, right now, is that we have a real strong group of leaders, and everyone leads in their authentic way. Some people are going to be more vocal. Some people are going to be more like interpersonal, arm around. But I think more than ever, we're pulling in the same direction, everybody. We're going to meet challenges, right? I'd imagine there's going to be difficult games where, whether we get the result or don't get the result, like, are we going to be able to stick together? And I think it's going to come down to our leadership group. 2 of the guys in the room right now are going to be a big part of that. And I have no doubt we'll handle all those situations.
4 Sun Belt teams
Mhm.
are ranked in the top 25. You're one of those. 3 of those are ahead of you. Is that part of the fun and the chase to run those down?
Yeah, so I feel like it's always good to chase something, right? And to have something in your sights that you can go and get. I think the rankings, they're not going to be our focus. I think the rankings are an outcome and a benefit of playing really well over time. They're someone else's opinion, and so they're not as meaningful to us as a lot of the things that we'll consider, like how are we judging ourselves, right? That'll be how others judge us, and they have so much less information about what's going on in our program and how we work every day. So the rankings have, they make us feel good, but we won't focus on them, if that helps.
You bring in 4 new faces in the back line, whether it's from another college or internationally. What can you tell us about this back line, especially considering that Zane graduated last year?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think our back line's going to be a huge strength of ours. I think we have a number of players who are experienced. We could put a back line out right now of guys who were all here last year, and it could be, in my opinion, one of the best back lines in the country, because we actually did put that back line out a couple times, right? If you think Anderson on one side, Timo on the other, Jonas and Arne, right? You could put that back line out again, and that back line was here previously when we were playing at a high level. So I think, I'll also say the new players are going to add something too. Right away, there's some older experienced guys who I think are going to compete for positions in that back line, and they're going to make us better, and they bring different things to how we would play, right? Zane was 6'4", really physical player, big presence, competitor, and I think you'll find, all right, we don't necessarily have a guy that's just like Zane, but we have guys who coming out with the ball are going to be really clean and very, very good picking a pass. You're going to see some guys that are going to be very athletic who could potentially play back there. And so there's some options, I think, that we'll have. And this is part of what preseason's for. Let's evaluate the players and see who is it that's going to, be able, and it may change game to game, but who's going to make the back line better, right? And, it might be that one game it's better suited to a certain player and a certain type of player. It might be another game that, no, okay, this is actually a better person to play in this position. So I'm excited to see kind of what those options are.
You also have that switch in the midfield. Saku, the sensation that he was when pro in Finland. AJ graduated. You bring in Sora and Javi from Spain. What was it like now with this kind of switch over the midfield?
Yeah, I think that's an area that the preseason is going to be really good for us to take some time and to see which players are going to connect best in that area. We have Giannis back, of course. Usman Ba, he's actually had a lot of injuries, but now he's back and he looks great. Javi's a new player in there. There's some options in there. And so I think that's what's going to be really interesting. And Robbie and AJ, Robbie's a player that I don't know if I'll ever or we'll ever find a player exactly like Robbie. I've never seen a player cover more ground in the midfield to just absolutely stomp out difficult moments for our team. So, when you get different players, the idea is, okay, we're not going to have another Robbie Sorenellis, so what's our midfield going to be like? And it's going to be different. And then how do we best organize ourselves and play the best version that we have with the player profiles that we have?
Speaking of that non-conference schedule, you end up getting started with a gauntlet like Mercer NCAA tournament, Seattle U NCAA tournament, Wake Forest, FIU. Like overall, 9 opponents on your schedule this year were in the NCAA tournament. So especially 100%. After last year, what's it like to kind of have that schedule kind of
overwhelming majority in the top 25?
Yeah, that's by design, and I think when you play elite teams and teams that are used to winning and competing at the highest level, you're going to get better. And so it doesn't help us, in my opinion, to play teams that are not going to test you, not going to put you on your edge, because when we get into conference, we're absolutely going to be tested. And to know, okay, what do we need to get better at? That's revealed day one. You play Mercer, you have to deal with Mercer, and they're very good at what they do, right? And then you're going to have another challenge against Seattle. You're going to have a totally different challenge against Wake, and all of those challenges are going to help us learn a lot about ourselves, and we're going to get better. Bottom line, when we're done with that non-con schedule, we're going to know things that are important, and we're going to train them, and our guys are going to understand them, and we're going to understand, okay, where do we need to get better? What level do we need to be at? And that's going to be really important for conference schedule.
A majority at home, and when you got
Yeah.
here first, you play a lot of marquee games on the road. Now you're starting to get those at home, fresh off a year where you had record attendance, seasoned attendance, some single game attendance.
Yeah.
How does it mean to have those marquee teams coming here?
I think it's really exciting, and I think this is part of the next step for the UCF soccer program, and that is like let's get the Wakes of the world here, right? And there should be another one next year, who I won't say until we get that contract signed. But let's get these teams here, because Orlando's this incredible soccer market. I mean, you see it with Orlando City. You see we pack out Barca, Man City. There's so many people interested. So many club teams and youth organizations in this area who just who love it. And let's create an incredible environment for them, and get those young players as well in the community and the students in the stands, and let's inspire them.
Hit history last year by being the first UCF team to reach number one, but between that and the difficulty of this schedule, like what is it like to kind of come off of that thing? I don't know if I want to say expectations, but I mean you're coming off of like arguably one of the biggest seasons in program history, and then you have this sort of schedule. So what does that kind of do for you as a coach? You talk about taking this program up a notch.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it exactly, right? So we have been continuously trying to get better, right? And that's at the individual level, what our guys are trying to do every single day. It's why we train. It's what we're trying to do as a staff. We're trying to take steps forward, and I think that's no matter what, that's my motivation. How do we continuously improve? And you can't spend too much time thinking about, okay, what happened last week or 2 weeks before. You really have to have that viewpoint, like, all right, we're going to need to take steps forward, and this is one of them.
Who would you say has made the biggest leap forward over this offseason? From
preseason, I think it's too tough for me to say like one player. I think in the last 4 years, I think the two guys that are in the room are huge. That's who I'd point to say that these guys have taken massive steps forward in so many ways. When they came in as freshmen, to now where they're big leaders in the team, and both have improved in the football part too, in terms of becoming better players. And so I would say those two are guys that, to me now, I'm excited for them for this year, where they can take everything that they've learned and how they've grown, and now put it to use in their final season.
You
One
lost
more
your
for
number.
Coach.
You lost your number 2 keeper to transfer. How would you evaluate your depth in net?
I think we've done really well. The position, we brought in a goalkeeper now to join us for this fall. He came in the summer. I think he's got a great background, and in the few days that I've seen him, he looks great, Timo. But then Shane, who is a local guy, FKK, I'll tell you, in the spring he was neck to neck with Wanby, and had had really he got 50% of the games during that spring and did an amazing job. And that's what you want. You want players pushing each other, you know. And I think Wambi has in turn also responded to that, and is motivated and focused and ready to go. Knows what he needed to get better at from last fall, and I think really is addressing that, and he looks great right now.
What was the biggest thing this team needs to do between now and kickoff of game 1 against Mercer?
I would say, I'll tell you what the guys did do already. They put in some work. When they come back for Summer B, they don't just go to class and hang out and get to know each other. They put in work. They put in work in the weight room with J House, our strength coach. They put in work on the field, and they do it. And they lead each other, and they hold each other accountable. And so they've done that. So I think they've come in fit. I think they've come in now, rather than just doing running, they've done a lot of it through their own organization and playing. So now you're soccer fit, which is helpful. And now I think it's, how do we bring this group together in different ways? How do we bring this group together from a football perspective is probably the biggest thing, and that requires the coaches. Everything that they could do on their own, they did, and they did it at an exceptionally high level. And now it's, all right, how do we really get organized between now and then? How do we understand the different game moments? What should we be doing when we're counterattacking? And, you know, how should we be setting up when we have possession and we're in the opponent's final third, and we need to make sure we're not vulnerable to the counterattack? All of those different phases and situations, that's really what it's about now, because the guys have already put in a massive amount of work to be ready for this point.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Good.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thanks, guys.